I think the music and the arts really help us appreciate life, and it's of no benefit if we are the art and the music that's supposed to be a celebration of life is just things that are putting down our spirits. So there's a great cry for young people just to find Christ, to find a place in the church, to find a way to serve, to use their gifts, to have mentors and things, tools to guide them. There's a lot of guidance needed, and there's a lot of guidance that is wanted. Hence, a lot of kids are going towards gangs and all of these things because they want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they have calling and purpose. And I think God is really doing a revival in that sense, that the young kids are seeking truth, and they are seeking it. And I think no better way, again, through the music, to bring that truth.
Welcome to the Follow Forward podcast, where we highlight real stories, global voices, and Christ-centered servant leadership. I'm your host, Tim Tucker, and I'm so excited today to have someone close to home. We're back in South Africa in this episode with Alistair Noah. He's a South African Christian artist with a huge passion to serve Christ and to impact this generation with the gospel. Alistair, welcome to the Follow Forward podcast.
Thank you for having me, Tim. It's really an honor to be here.
Good. Well, as I always say, a large part of Follow Forward is sharing stories of mates on mission, people who are partnering in the gospel, who I've walked a road with as well, to amplify these stories, to really encourage people to become Christ-centered servant leaders. But Alistair, when I talk about you, I need to start with your wife, Taryn, who I've known a lot longer than I've known you. And in fact, I was thinking there, why did we not do the podcast with the two of you on together? But I think we'll get Taryn on in a future podcast. And if you've said anything that needs correcting, she'll have the chance to correct it in a future podcast. But I first met Taryn at our first ever Message South Africa youth night at Cape Gateway International Church. Shout out to Pastor C. Flandorp, Louise Flandorp, and the whole team there at Cape Gateway International Church. Taryn was there on a youth night. And even on that night, actually, she was someone who I really sensed God's hand upon her life. She then subsequently became one of the first Academy member cohorts, probably 2017, 18, that kind of time, when she actually became part of the Message family. And you know, we love Taryn because, you know, she was single and able to go and do anything for the gospel, just serving Jesus wholeheartedly. And then one day we found out there was a man in her life, and we thought, are her priorities now going to change? But thankfully we met you, Ali, and you're a good oak, and we're happy for both of you. But obviously, as I've only known your story post Taryn, I think we need to start with your story pre-Taryn, which is in a part of a town of South Africa I've never actually been to. I've never been to Kimberley. I've never seen the Big Hole. And so I need you to fill in the gaps here and tell me, what was life like for you growing up? Tell me about the young Alistair Noah and life back home in Kimberley, South Africa.
Yeah, so Kimberley is such a beautiful place. Kimberley is situated close to Bloemfontein. It's one of those places historically that people came there for what the land had to offer, but then because of, you know, whatever else they were searching for, they kind of just took and left. So Kimberley's previous name was called the New Rush, because people used to dig for diamonds there. They kind of still do, hence the Big Hole, and so it got its name. And it's a beautiful art city. So growing up, it's also very small city. So Cape Town, like in comparison, is like we can fit 2-3 Kimberleys in Mitchell's Plain alone. But it's very much developing. A lot of the people are warm. A lot of the people are nice, and so friends were a big part of, you know, getting through life in Kimberley. And so me as a young child, I was just very much looking forward to exploring the world, but also very much like just excited about Kimberley because just of the culture, because it was all I knew. The people there So this is a different type of way that they see life, and they do things there that I think is very, in a good way, different from Cape Town. So growing up there has definitely been a pleasure. Because there isn't much really to do activity-wise. A lot of the people get enslaved to drinking and all that stuff because, yeah, there's not really much to do. Maybe jobs are not as available. And so there's a lot of that still. But if you find yourself some good friends, family members, people that you can really walk a journey with, it makes a load lighter. So those things is what I appreciate a lot. And so that's kind of also what cultivated my heart for people, for mission. It's just the authentic relationships that one can build and seeing the lack thereof.
So you've described growing up, small town, sense of security, family relationships. I believe you did grow up in a Christian environment, but when
Yes.
did that become real for you in terms of a relationship with Jesus?
Awesome. So I grew up in a faith-based home. My mom, worship leader, father, deacon. So they were very much doing this thing for God. But unfortunately, I think a lot of the time in the churches that are more established over the years, um, they are really closed off new ideas and to hearing the hearts of the young people. And so I think I grew up in that time where I didn't know what's happening with my soul and how to process life, as well as with my brothers and all these people. And we just felt that disconnect with the church, and having to go to the church, and my parents were stressed because of, what people might say at church if we come late and stuff like that. I couldn't put those two things together, like why, or at least we coming for Jesus, why are we considering people? So over the years, it was just I knew him, I had a relationship with him. Growing up, I had a strong belief in him. But over time, what the world is communicating, what I'm receiving on my phone, the games I'm playing, everything is communicating a different story. And so around about the age of 18, I joined a couple of friends. They were having I think it was like a Valentine's Day service at this other church that was much more closer to home. And naturally, we were going there to see girls or whatever, because you're at that age. And so got there, then I just experienced God, and I was like, this is so weird because I'm around a bunch of young people that are crying out to Christ, that are my age, and something just clicked in my heart, and I got a prophecy. It wasn't just an instant moment, but it was layers that were pulled off, and then I had my aha moment on a Easter Sunday, which is actually crazy because I was asked to perform on that Sunday. But that very Sunday, I experienced God's presence during praise and worship, and I realized, nah, this is where I need to be. I've been searching, and nothing else can satisfy me like this right here. And so I just felt darkness leave my heart, and I went to perform. It was a very bad performance, mind you, but I received Christ, and I was so on fire from that moment forward. Yeah.
Amazing. I suppose listening to your story, I can see where the creative DNA came in because you grew up in a house with music and worship
Yes.
and performing and growing in music. But I'll never forget watching you perform in Gangstar Cafe. It must have been a couple of years ago, but I think it was the first time I saw you perform. And I'll never forget your entrance. That was the thing that struck me. Uh, where you walked through with this hood over and breathing deeply into the microphone, and I was like, here's a man that's making a point. And what I recognized then was that for you the art form and the packaging was as important as the song itself.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's
Yeah.
why artistry seems to run in your veins. And so how has that developed in you from seeing maybe a gift in music or a passion for music? How have you developed your gift over the years, and how do you kind of keep on growing as an artist?
I think the way that you phrase that question really is a perfect way for me to answer it, because music is flowing from my veins. It's flowing from my life. It's flowing from my soul. So the heavy breathing, the performance, the packaging is everything. If you listen to any of my songs or see the EPs or anything, it's basically almost like fragments of my soul, of my processing, or whatever that I've put on display, because for me it means that much. It's my way of processing life and experience, and I've packaged it based on the sounds I've used, based on the photography, based on the expression, the melodies. Everything is that. And so the development comes from me growing as a person. And so as I figure out more about, you know, my trauma, my livelihood, as I grow in my marriage and, achieve certain things in life, that influences the sounds that I would be interested in. Because for me, everything communicates. All the sounds, every lyric I use, the way that I move my body on stage, it communicates a certain thing. And so that's exactly that with the music. I wanted to communicate a processing, a theme, a story to help whoever may be going through that similar thing, um really be able to express their deepest thoughts and ideas that is like groaning in their soul. That's kind of how I develop it. So it's an ongoing thing, and so it's never the same. If you've seen any of my projects or listened to any of my stuff, it's
Is that
always
how you like
something
it? Do you
different.
prefer not to be defined by a particular genre or style?
um I
Or
think
how would you
and
define
on
yourself?
I think on a base level, from previous projects, it was definitely helping me develop as a person. I won't be able to say, because I think in some seasons it will call for something like this, and in some seasons will call for something like again, it's about what I'm trying to communicate. And for me, if I'm trying to communicate something of a serious matter, maybe I'll breathe in a mic. But if I'm trying to communicate, like, let's have joy in the Lord, it might sound something different. As long as the message stays the same, which is Christ. Christ loved, Christ died, Christ rose, and I want us all to love with him. So it's in that, it's all in that sphere. And so it's not that I necessarily don't mind being defined by a genre. I think it's just, as we develop as people, we will find what we need to do, or what will intrigue us.
Great. And this is the Follow Forward podcast. It's not a music analytical podcast. I'll leave that to my wife in the future. But I do love music. I enjoy different styles and so on. But what I'm most interested in as the Follow Forward podcast is this sense of consistency between your art and your life, and how all of that surrenders in terms of following Christ. Because we know, obviously, with gifts or talents, it's very easy to become ambitious. And one of the great barriers to leaders, I sense, is selfish ambition. It's one of those things where people of influence, we want to gain a following, we want to gain a crowd, we want to have the adoration, affirmation of people. And there's nothing like music that can be almost a temptation to veer in that direction. The plaudits, the stage, all of those things in their own way can fuel selfish ambition, which in some ways is deceitful, which is why we see so many artists, when they make it, they struggle. How are you navigating that in your own life to be the authentic person that you are as a follower of Christ, while making sure you stay grounded to your core purpose?
So it's I think for me personally, it's a lot of introspection. You've got to always ask that question over and over. Why am I releasing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I pursuing this? I think from this time in this generation, the whole idea of streams and views has become a focal point for why artists do things and how people do stuff to get trendy. And so naturally, like you say, it is something that it tempts us. But for me, I found that having accountability, asking those questions, speaking to, like, I speak to my wife all the time about my music, and she gets sometimes like fed up because she's just like, you just speak about this so much. But it's important for me to,
Problem with my wife, I have that problem when I talk about football with her.
it's,
But the difference is after 5 words she glazes over. I just need to carry on telling her about what's happened. So
okay.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. Okay. No, my wife enjoys Barcelona, so we good on that front.
You don't know.
But yeah, but the music, I think, is the biggest thing. And like I said, it's important just to be introspective and really be okay with stepping away from social media. Like I've had to take a couple of times just stepping back, um, because I know that w- where my mind is going is not following Christ's way, and I've got to cut that off. I've got to find and replace it with a appropriate mindset, which is the way Christ did it. He didn't preach for followers, but he preached for people to really receive the gospel. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think, God is gracious. He gives us early warning signals, and sometimes we learn to ignore them at our peril. But when the word says he will not tempt us beyond what we can bear, I think that's part of that verse means that there's built in the Holy Spirit in us, gives us those early warning signals. But even in those moments, we still have choice. We have a choice. Do we conform to the Spirit of God, or do we conform to the pattern of this world? And when we talk about Romans 12 and 1 and 2 and that whole verse, it's an ongoing choice. The choice
Yeah.
is, do we conform or are we transformed? And
Yeah.
so that introspection is a daily question. Am I conforming or am I being transformed? And if we're being transformed, then our art, our life, our conversations become transformative in their
Mm.
own way. But I think that's what's critical, isn't it, in terms of following Christ in this sphere? There's no middle ground in that sense. I do, but it's not like there's grey areas in this. It's hearing and listening to God and saying, within this, am I truly following after you and laying before you the gifts and talents you've given me as a living sacrifice? And then the biggest question is, Lord, should you take this away for a season for whatever reason, how would I feel about that? That's one of those tough questions that we need
Yeah.
to ask ourselves, and it will really truly tell us where our heart is.
Where
But
our
I,
hearts
I
lie.
really respect what you're saying about the social media world and the kind of echo chambers we can find ourselves in as well. They
Mm.
can fuel this whole area of selfish ambition that we're talking about. It can fuel it in a really
Mm.
unhealthy way. And if our value becomes connected to that, feelings of self-worth, then that's also becomes a destructive path. But obviously you're someone who has a heart for this generation, a heart for South
Mm.
Africa. You've moved from Kimberley now. You're permanently in Cape Town. What are some of the things you're sensing that God is doing amongst young people? What are the things you're feeling you need to almost speak into, and beginning to see the Lord at work? How do you see God is using music? How is God using you? But what is the Spirit doing in Cape Town at this time that you're
So there's a few things that I've sensed. I think with music and what I've sensed where I'm at currently, God is really doing something within the Afrikaans community that has struggled a lot with a performative mindset, and that have been losing the plot, missing the mark when it comes to whether or not the way that we are doing church and the way that we worship is really to glorify Him, or is it just for show so that everybody can feel good. And so I'm seeing that a lot, and so God has really been nudging my heart to create a lot of Afrikaans music that um, can really translate His heart towards His people again. And then I think in general, I see God is doing a lot of things in the youth where there's a lot of youth that are on fire and that really want direction. Um, they really want to believe in Christ. They want to believe in something firm and strong. And they've kind of gotten tired, going back again to music. I think they've kind of gotten tired of all of the swearing and the debauchery and all that stuff. And they kind of just want something that they can feel good, that can be positive, can carry them forward. I think the music and the arts really help us appreciate life. And if it's of no benefit if the art and the music that's supposed to be a celebration of life is just things that are putting down our spirits. So there's a great cry for young people just to find Christ, to find a place in the church, to find a way to serve, to use their gifts, to have mentors and things, tools to guide them. There's a lot of guidance needed, and there's a lot of guidance that is wanted. Hence a lot of kids are going towards the gangs and all of these things because they want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they have a goal and a purpose. And I think God is really doing a revival in that sense, that the young kids are seeking truth, and they are seeking it. And I think no better way, again, through the music, to bring that truth.
Amazing. I think, interesting what you say about the Afrikaans community. I'm aware that, your music includes Afrikaans songs. I heard recently you and the Message Trust team out in Citrusdal, which is predominantly an Afrikaans speaking area, and the kids knew your songs. I mean, that must have been a nice feeling, but also showing actually that there's something that resonates when we sing in the heart language of people. Is that something you're feeling more called to specifically to engage in, and to say, how can you then bring the message that you feel God's laid on your heart in relevant ways, particularly to the Afrikaans community? And what would that look like in terms of your trajectory of your music career, do you think?
That's such good questions. Definitely. I think I definitely feel that call on my heart to create this music. I think it's mission based, for the sense that it's creating structures to rehabilitate people's hearts towards God again. I feel as though my calling is to bring people to the adornment of God, whether that's by song or by deed or action, service, whatever. And so I think this whole season that I'm personally in is, if God is calling me away for a season from maybe singing some English songs, tongue that I'm quite used to Afrikaans, am I okay with that? And in the sense that He has something specific for the people of my color and the people that come from my culture. But I would want it to be pure, because I don't want it to be something that is fabricated by man's hands. Rather selflessness, not selfish ambition, in the way that we dream and the way that we serve, in the way that we do things. And
Oh, amazing. Yeah, Ali, I think I love the honesty there as well. Sometimes it's helpful to know we don't have this all mapped out. We don't have this all planned out. But we're just doing the thing that God has told us to do next.
yeah.
And if that bears fruit, then He will lead us into the next thing beyond
And,
that as
and
well. And so, yeah.
and just to add on to that, I think there hasn't really been any financial gain in the type of genres that are being tackled right now, like your pop R&B that's Afrikaans related, or whatever genres. There hasn't really been much than your church related material or your country folkish type of related genres. And so I'm going off what God is calling me to do.
What encouragement would you give to young creatives, young artists who are trying to find their way in South Africa in this combination of authentically following Jesus, but also wanting to make a mark, wanting to make a difference? What would you say to the Ali of a few years ago, just making his way and still making his way? But what would you think would be some of the key things that you'd want to advise others with?
Yeah, so I think what I would say is doing much doesn't mean that you're having an impact. Sometimes less is more. It's something I had to learn a lot over the years. Because there's so much that wants to come out. But sometimes doing less, just yeah, you get your message across. I think if you truly trying to leave a mark to impact, and the Bible says that everything else will pass away, and His word will remain. So if you ready to dive to yourself, you're ready to obey it at any cost, if you're ready to keep your word, if you're ready to be seen foolish to man, um, I think then you are ready to create the impact, because the way that God moves is not how we think, and it's not based, like we said, the patterns of this world. It's not what's going to be trendy. It's not what you're going to post, and it's going to get the most hits. It's going to be the thing that impacts the one. And heaven celebrates when one person comes to heaven. So that should be your aim, and not being the multitudes. And I'm speaking as somebody that has to wrestle with a lot of that thinking. But at the end of the day, we need to remember that if you want to leave an impact, it's about the one. So how can we best get that out across to that one?
Well, I think, the best lessons are the things we're working through ourselves, and that's important. This podcast presents all of us as works in progress. And so we're continuing to filter the things in our own lives that we're working through and allow the Spirit to work in that. But as we're filtering that then becomes helpful for others as well. So thanks for being part of this. Really
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
the conversation. I hope it's encouragement to people who are listening. This has been the Follow Forward podcast. Real stories, global voices, Christ-centered servant leadership. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, Ali. Thank you for listening to the Follow Forward podcast. This may have been my idea, but I worked with an awesome team to make it come to life. Thank you to Lucy for guest management, scheduling, and being a real gap filler. Jordan for taking over the guest management baton, as well as doing content production, scripting assistance, and editing of these podcasts. Alistair and my lovely wife, Christina, for technical production, and Taryn for taking behind-the-scenes content and crew support. Whether you're watching or listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you are on, and share this episode with your friends so we can inspire even more people together. We release a new episode every Thursday, along with extra content to help you grow as a leader of people and a follower of Christ. Follow my Facebook page at Dr. Tim Tucker to access all the bonus content. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to send a DM or leave a comment letting us know what you enjoyed about the episode. God bless, and we'll see you next week.